Okay, I got the red smoke.
Gun runs north to south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby. Give it to me. I need it. Get cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
I have an idea. You
Okay.
stop talking.
Okay, yes,
All
sir.
right. All right.
Who runs this podcast? You, right?
Exactly. This is my problem.
We're going to listen to the MFI.
Yeah.
Okay.
The military, Tim and I were talking about this yesterday. Recruiting was never an issue for me because I knew what I wanted to do since I was super young. I remember there was recruiting efforts, but I was beating down the door of my Navy recruiter. My parents signed the waiver when I was 17 so I could enlist through the delayed entry program, which at the time I thought was super awesome, and then I had to wait until I turned 18 and graduate high school. So I'm not sure exactly why it exists, other than to make recruiters happy. I literally kicked in the door. So I didn't pay attention to the recruiting efforts. Tim is probably the same boat, and probably the vast majority of people that we serve with were in the same boat. It was a calling for them that I still at 46 can't describe exactly why. But for most people, it's not that. And you have to create an equity or a value proposition. And in my personal opinion, which counts for nothing other than how I think about things, I think the military writ large does a very poor job of talking about not what the military can do, but what the person can get from military service. To me, the social media posts that I would start with for military recruiting would have two people side by side. One would have somebody who is in debt from $100,000 to $160,000, has a bachelor's, maybe a master's, and is working an hourly job, versus somebody who is 4 years into the military with zero debt, assuming they had good leadership and didn't get a car at a 20% interest rate right off of base. Not that we know anybody that has happened to. No debt, college is going to be paid for, and likely a skill that they can roll into for probably a six-figure vocation that sets them up for success in life. My post would be, which one of these do you want to be? And I would open with that and then talk about the things that we do in service later on to tell the other side of the story. Because almost all the messaging is multicam. It's bang and bullets and things that blow up. And although that is obviously the role of the military, it doesn't attract everyone. The people at this table were attracted by those things. As much as I tell people I'm the most normal person that I know and the most sane person that I know right here, people disagree with me, and I can't figure out why. So, to me, most people will never get the chance to talk with a flag officer or a CSM about what is life in the Army like. I mean, we can talk about why we're here in D-Day. The roots all the way back to Europe. I think what the military was at that point, the values, the ethos, who we were as a country, how that translates forward to the modern military. And I'd love to hear from both of you just how do you feel the military is suited right now to face the challenges going forward? And if there are gaps that we can identify, how would you fill them with the information that you guys both have at the ABEX?
Yeah.
Which is like 72 questions.
So I think the first thing, you're talking about recruiting, right? So
Yeah.
the first thing is the Army is doing better recruiting this year. We're above glide path. But I think you nail it, right? So there's people join, everyone is someone and they come from somewhere. And everyone comes into the Army for different reasons, right? And you're right. The four of us came in for the reasons you talked about, right? I didn't know much about the Army. Don't come from an Army family or any of those things, but all I remember is I was a paper boy, and Grenada happened, and I was like 10 years old, and I was like, wow, what are these crazy guys doing? They're jumping out of airplanes, and you saw it was on the front page of the my hometown newspaper, Public Opinion, and I was like, man, I don't know anything about that, but that looks pretty cool. I would like to do that someday. And then of course I forgot about it, right? And I was just being a normal kid, and next thing you know, at some point I'm in the Army, and I'm like, I want to go to that unit that did that. What's that unit? Oh, it was the Ranger Regiment, right? And by the way, he was a squad leader in ACO 275. We were together.
Wow.
Right? So you got that group. And then the other day I read this book. This guy gave it to me from Fayetteville State, and it talked about exactly what you're hitting on. Basically, if you join the Army, you're almost guaranteed, at a minimum, that you're going to be middle class, and when you get out, you will probably, with the skills and everything that you've gotten, you're going to move your family into the upper middle class, if not more, right? So how do you square those two things? I think that's what we're seeing. And I also believe recruiting's harder because when we were all fighting and deploying, people were going, oh, I'm in. Our nation's at war, I'm in. And then suddenly when we stopped going, right, you had to change and adjust. And you're talking about that adjustment to come back. So I think not just the Army, I think all the services are starting to adjust back to that exact thing. Okay, we just can't say, hey, join the Army and let's go fight together, right? And just plan on that. It's now, hey, we're actually not at war, but man, we're also at this transition point where we have to transform our military to match what's going on in the world. So you've all these multiple things coming together at one time. And, so that's where I think we're at. So we're starting, again, we'll see. You need several years of good recruiting, right? Several years. You guys know that as well as anybody. But at least for this year and everything else that's going on, you see that we're starting to get on track. So do we understand that environment? And I think you had to nail it right there, right? And guys like us, right, we're the problem sometimes too, right? Because that's what we're looking for. What do I talk about all the time? People in warfighting, people in warfighting. I'm probably the worst recruiter in the world, right?
Not to Tim and
I. But what percentage is that out there?
Oh, a fraction of a percent.
So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So my message is probably pretty weak, right? To the people who you're trying to recruit. That's why I'm not in recruiting, right?
I think it's a strong message, but I think if you change the lens that you look at it from, you can talk about everything that comes in life after military service too. Like Tim was joking. He jokes with me all the time. Indy, he's an adrenaline junkie and he likes to do all these dangerous things. But I enjoy those activities. But what you don't see is I take every lesson that I learned in the military to how to view an objective from the 30,000-foot view to literally getting ready to breach a door, and I apply those to all those things that I do in the military as well. The ORM cycle. I mean, everything from weather study to terrain study to using, a communication plan. How am I going to stay in track of loved ones? The people that I'm going to be out there with, making sure they're trained, current, and competent. I'm constantly out there assessing risk, which is a weird thing to say when you're zipping up a nylon suit and getting ready to jump off a cliff, because there's absolutely no way to reduce that risk to zero, but I can get it to a threshold where I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I learned all of that
in
Afghanistan and Iraq. I don't know how to put that on an Instagram post. But I also own a coffee shop now in Montana of all the bizarre things that I do. And I have 40 employees. All but 2 of them they're actually right in the wheelhouse recruiting age for the military. Early teens to mid-20s. It's not a vocation for anybody. They kind of pass through. I know it's going to be a transitory job. I use the leadership skills that I learned in the military to use to model our business, a metric-based approach. I mean, I call it our weekly, sync meeting where we look at our previous 7 and our next 7. I wonder where I learned that from. I'm not creating any of this stuff. I'm taking 17 years of experience and saying, well, this works if I can modify that. That works if I can modify that. And that's in addition to all the experience, communication skills, interpersonal skills, ability to plan, all of those things. You can take that combat message. I mean, the hard reality is, and Tim and I were talking about this yesterday, I think it's a very valuable thing if people remember they are completely and utterly replaceable. At some point in time, the service is going to move on with all 3 of you.
Yeah. I mean, the day that you're done, the service has moved on.
I didn't get to choose when I got out. But I was medically retired, and they said, you're done here.
Yeah.
That sucked.
The Army, the military, gives something that is a commodity that nobody else currently is giving to the level in which it's given, which is leadership.
And decision making.
Yeah, so from kind of like...
They're intrinsically
That's
tied.
what you just talked about.
Peak of leadership in the entire military, in the seats that you both hold. And he's talking about post-military career. All of our friends are wildly successful entrepreneurs. And every single one of them come from your respective backgrounds. So not just for your careers, but more like everyone that's kind of sitting in here right here, for them to know what happens after that ETS date, what happens as soon as they hang that uniform up. In addition to the GI Bill, that decision making, that program management, and that leadership, is truly priceless.
It makes you unstoppable, and I don't know how to
how do you convey
that message properly.
So I think, and I want the CSM to talk here in a second, but the first thing is anyone who's, if someone comes and asks me about getting out of the Army, I say, are you kidding me? I've been in the Army for 32 years, man. Don't talk to me about getting out of the Army, right? Talk to you two, right?
Well,
for all the reasons both of you just described.
One of us here just re-enlisted, so maybe not the best person to talk to.
Well,
about moving on.
CSM, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think kind of going back to your original point about recruiting. I think the Army is a huge enterprise. Especially when you compare it to the other services. And we have so many more different opportunities, many different more jobs. So we're looking for so many different kinds of people. So much more diverse in our organization for the talent and the types of people that we're looking for. And so I think part of it, we got to get better at is how do we recruit? If you're a college football team coach and you're going out scouting for talent, you're gonna go to where the talent that you're looking for, that you want to bring in, and start bringing those folks in. And so I think we could do a little bit better at being able to identify that, instead of just kind of setting baseline levels of things that if you can do these things, that come on in. But being able to focus and I think with the amount of recruiters we've put out there, we're better positioned and postured to do that. I think we also have to realize the environment. It's tougher for recruiters to get into some of these schools, where a lot of this talent resides. And then the other thing too is we're also recruiting. It's not so much the kids coming straight out of high school delayed entry program like you and I did. It's kids post college, and so we got to open our aperture up to that as well, because while and also acknowledge this generation's different. They want challenges. They want to do things that are meaningful. And so, being able to take a look at those things, and that's how we pull them in. And again, we're doing better, but I think we can't take our foot off the gas. We got to keep positive, because what makes us successful is our people.
Do you think that the peers that put us through training thought that our generation was different as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Every generation.
Yeah.
So I think that's a common repeating cycle we can't escape.
Yeah. The first on recruiting, like the areas that we are turning people away, and I guarantee it's this way for the other services. Cyber, any sort of signal specialty, any of those type tech things, medical, all the ones that we're turning people away for those things.
That's all also going to be automated in 3 years. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Learn a different school, people. Sorry.
But they're coming in with the skills to do all these things. But you're absolutely right. But more and more things, anything to do with drones, turning people away, right? But to your point, Tim, right? This Army's completely transforming into something completely different too, right? And more things, human machine integration, drones, all these things are going to, there's these new forms of mass that are out there. They're going to come back to us, and ultimately it's going to be a completely different recruiting environment, and it's going to be changing. So we got to match all that, right? Yeah. Hey, one last thing is that. So there's this great trilogy out there called the Pacific Trilogy, right? And after Guadalcanal, a bunch of people, all the people wearing uniforms like us, they do an after-action review, and one of the big takeaways was, boy, this generation, they're not tough enough. They're not this. We call them the greatest generation now, right? So there's always going to be someone who says, hey, I would tell you, this generation is freaking smart. They're way better than, I'll pick on me. I'll say anyone who's in my generation, this generation's actually better.
I have a 16-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old son, and a 20-year-old son, and their ability to self-start and learn exceeds. My 18-year-old son has already started 2 businesses from his computer. I'm like, I don't know if I went to school on time when I was that age. They're smart. They are, for sure.
Yeah.
Random thought. I asked him this yesterday. So we're in Normandy. It's the 80th anniversary. We were at Omaha Beach this morning.
That was a mess.
Low tide. Everywhere I've been, this is my first time here. It's one of the last places, if not the last place on my bucket list. And I think I pushed it off because of the gravity of it, the weight of it. And because I can't stop myself from only seeing things from a tactical perspective. being on Omaha, like, are you kidding me? 400 yards minimum of open beach with barricades and IDF and overlapping fields of fire, and people have been practicing their natural point of aim for 3 years. I mean, okay. Tim was like, what boat would you want to be on? I'm like, 700 maybe?
Yeah.
The patriotism from the French, seeing the World War II veterans, right before you guys came out and re-enlisted Tim, he literally had to get his Army voice on for a little bit to tell people to back up. We had to put caution tape up because they were crowding in on them.
Yeah.
I'd like scream, like, back up, be nice, I'm gonna start taking faces.
He didn't add that last part.
Swarmed.
He did not add that last part.
That was the method.
You just
he only
realized, let's
thought
start off on the wrong foot.
you were thinking that. You all have that inner voice, right? We're like, hey, come over here. I'd like to speak with you real quick. And,
No, it was the level of voice where you realize there was actually not a question involved in what he said. It was very directive in nature, and everybody took a few steps back. But here's the question. Do you think that there will ever be a celebration or anything even remotely like that for the people who have served for the last 20 years?
we were just talking about this, right? And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
You know what I mean?
I don't think so.
So my
Liberation of
question is,
Baghdad, Bagram was pretty right.
what do we do to do that, right? You know, I'm pretty confident all the places all the four of us were running around, they're not going to be like, hey, we want you to come back for the 20th anniversary, right?
If they did say that, I don't know if I would go.
Right.
Like, really, don't worry about my vest. Everything's fine.
So
I have a tax appointment that day. I can't make it.
So I guess my question is, what do we do, right? And you know, General Miller was out here just like 2 or 3 hours ago, right? And so we talk about this all the time. What do we do about this, right? So I do think we, you know, kind of like what the bunch of senior leaders did after World War I, after World War II. You know, Gavin on the you know, one of the big anniversaries, 1984, so the 40th anniversary, he made everybody come out here, right? He ordered them all to come out, right? So, and, you know, you talk about strategic to tactical, right? And, you know, Keith Nightingale, he summed it up very well. On the 9th of June, if you do not get this causeway right out here, the whole thing stops. So on the 9th of June, the company commander, you know, Captain Saul, the chain of command went from him to Eisenhower. Either he makes it or he doesn't. And if you don't think that in between Saul and Eisenhower, there was, you 3 division commanders sitting back here, well, that's not true. You had 2 division commanders waiting to punch through here. You had the division commander, the assistant commanding general, and the corps commander all running around in here, pushing people physically and moving tanks to get this through, right? You talk about that pressure. So they were good enough to do all that. I think it's incumbent upon, ultimately, you know, I'll pick on myself here, me and the likes of General Miller, General Dunford, you can go on and on, right? Admiral McRaven, all these guys that we all know. At some point, when do we start bringing everybody back together, right? And I think we're going to have to do that.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to bring them to those countries. You think maybe something like bringing them back to their home unit?
I think home unit, just say, hey, we're going to meet at some location and we're going to talk about everything, right?
Yeah.
Because just talking about what all you've done is really, really important, as you guys know, right?
You know, here it's really easy. Like, they literally stormed beaches, climbed cliffs, but liberated not just a nation, you know, but a continent, and then saved the world from tyranny. And that's a sentence that you can plant a flag on. Yeah. You know, the heritage of the Rangers climbing those cliffs, and you know, as soon as they crest the top, there's machine gun positions 20 meters away. It's madness. You know, 20 years at war for us. I think I had the same absolute confidence in what we were doing being right as the men did in 1944. Like, we were fighting evil. You know, when I watched a woman in a polka dot dress look out of a window and decide if she was going to burn alive or not, or jump to her death, and that is the description of evil, and we were fighting that thing. I mean, call it whatever you want on like profiteering for oil. I don't care about any of that stuff. What we were fighting was evil. And to celebrate that, we were fearlessly, courageously, bravely every single day going out and combating that. I mean, I'll do that all day long.
Yeah.
And that should still be celebrated. Like, it shouldn't be like our head hanging our head in shame that we don't have a place to plant our flag, like in St. Mayor, or Point the Hawk. But like, F those guys.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I'm not going to talk about units or anything else, but I was at that level of command that we were doing exactly what we said for 5 straight years.
Yep.
I mean, I'll tell you what, I was a pretty, I was a mean, callous dude, right? And I mean that, mean, callous. That's keeping it G-rated, right? And like you, I love deploying. I still love deploying. I got 5 kids. I want to be with my kids. But I'll tell you what, if there's a deployment, if there's something going on, I better be there, right? And I don't know if it's a sickness. I don't know if it's, whatever it is. I don't know, right? But, so I think we have to kind of celebrate a little bit, too, of who we are. It's okay, right? And, the term, probably isn't the most popular thing to say. I don't like the term resilience. Like, I'm not resilient, okay? We're all getting stronger, right? I'm not a survivor. I'm getting stronger, right? And we got to tell, we have to make sure we talk about all this stuff, right? Think of the people you were with. Man, you were around the best people in the world, and they were damn good people who were willing to go do that, right?
Yeah.
And so again, this is why I think we got to get people back together.
Sergeant Major, do you think that there's a divide? I mean, he's a warrior. You're a warrior. You're a warrior. You come from the most elite units on the planet, the 3 of you, and communicating. Like, we're a warrior nation. Like, we began, in 1770s when a shot was heard around the world, and we killed everyone that was part of the opposition force and kicked them off this continent until that we were free. That's our beginnings. And then through World War I, World War II, like, that's kind of at our core. And this generation, I'm proud, of my friends and the things that you guys have done. And I like to brag about the things, the units that you've been in, the units that you've been. Like, that's a beautiful, rad thing. But I don't know if that is understood and received. Do you think that we can communicate the things that we do and how we do it a little bit better? And how do we do that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A couple guys have hit me up on this exact topic, and they said, "Hey, quit talking about problems, right? Because that's such a small percentage of your service. Talk about all the great things, right? Don't dwell on those things." They were talking about, the people of New York. He goes, the only thing they ever hear about is the bridge to towers, run or whatever. He goes, well, that's all about, what's great about that? Like, talk about all the other stuff that happens as well, right? And then, dovetail that into what you led off with, right? Hey, if you join the Army, if you join the Marine Corps, if you join the Air Force, Navy, whatever, hey, this is what look at all the great things that are going to come out of it. You're here, this is what you're going to be able to do, this is what you're going to learn, this is the people you're going to be with, and this is where you're going to end up if you want to hang around. Or if you just do one term, then this is where you're going to be when you come out. And again, it's not about being resilient, it's about getting better. It's about helping everybody. It's about being part of a great team, the talent. And just because of the Army, right? The talent that you see every day. We just re-enlisted a kid right out here. He joined when he was 29 years old, right? He was working in a shipyard. Started off as a guy who just the lowest level, didn't complete college, was a middle manager. Came in the Army, just became an 18 series guy. He's in the 82nd right now. I mean, you talk to that guy, man, he's got a college degree. His wife is extremely, does really well in, financial sector, Cleveland State grad. I mean, just, you look at it and you're like, man, that's an amazing story. Mm-hmm. You're the American that everyone should be. So, anyways. I'm off on a tangent now. But
How'd you navigate your way out of that callous place?
probably the first thing was my wife. Well, there was a couple things, right? Because it took me a while. That's the first thing, right?
Did you recognize it when you were in it?
Probably not. Doesn't mean I wasn't fully aware,
Yeah.
right? But probably not. I think it was a survival thing too, right? Because I knew I was going back, right? So I think, my wife and I, we had, we had 5 kids, like I said, but later. I was after 05 command, right? And one of my kids was going along and fell and like hurt their knee. And I was like, hey, get up, you're all right, And I wasn't saying it like, hey, get up, you're gonna be all right. It was because that's what you do to a friend. And, if you were running through the streets of Fallujah and someone got down, you pick them up, hey man, don't worry about it, everything's gonna be okay, right? Because you don't know what just happened. And you want to give them, hey, it's hope, let's keep going, everything's gonna be great, right? Survival. And my wife was like, hey, that's not someone you serve with, that's your kid. Like, you just don't say that to your kid. You know what I mean? I was like, ooh, yeah, you're right. And that I think that made me kind of
Turn the light on a little bit.
That was the first moment, and I distinctly remember that, where I got to dial it in.
I had a moment like that too. Yeah, you don't realize the stereo equalizer bars are maybe just being shifted up or down, just a touch.
Yeah, I'm not that smart to think of it that way. I just knew, like, man, that's not, I'm not being the dad I should be.
People ask me about combat. If you slide everything to a 10 and you get used to that, and you come home and baseline at home is a 3. I mean, is it even reasonable to expect somebody to be able to hear anything that's going on? I had exact experiences like that. You seem to be smarter than me, because I think it took me about half a dozen to recognize what was going on. But the same thing, what was a huge deal to somebody else did not register on my emotional scale, because whatever had just happened, like, you need to sort that out immediately on your own because you're holding us back. My wife was like, we're going to the grocery store. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's probably not as important.
Well,
it took time, though.
The other thing, too, is, like you guys, you've always worked out. We all grapple. We all do all those different things, right? And I think that helped you out as well. You didn't know it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it. I'll put it that way, right? So the Army calls it holistic health and fitness. Incredibly important. Taking care of your body, not drinking too much, sure as hell not using drugs and everything else. I don't care what anyone tells you. Like, you don't do those things, you are significantly better off.
We were kind of tussling about it. I think this heavily falls into the NCO side. He's like, can we solve the suicide problem? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I don't think we can. I think it's like a culture problem. It's like,
it's a species problem, is what I said.
I know, but as a species, when you start taking little bits of the pie and splitting it up with, are they exercising? How are they eating? Are they getting sleep? Is there too much caffeine? Are they using tobacco? Are they using any drugs? What is their home life like? What is their economic life like? Every single one of those things is just an accumulating stressor. And as those things start directionally, both positively and negatively, it has significant impact. And once those dominoes start falling one way or the other, it's really difficult to turn the ship. But it can be turned. And you start addressing holistically the entire human optimization of, like, okay, how do I, not that I'm like this totally optimized person, but I'm really disciplined. Not last night, because we had to freaking work and get up at midnight and then be on the road by 3 a.m. But with sleep and cold plunging and working out and diet and, being faithful and all these things, like, how do you take care of soldiers? Like, how do we get them not to be hitting rippets, not to have a wad in their mouth, not to be going out downtown, like they're deployed and trying to find something downrange. Hey, it's because there's a culture problem in the Army, that we can do anything, and we can, but we should be able to do anything in the right conditions, and that is.
Yeah. I think kind of going back to suicide, I think it's you're right. It's a species problem, and I think
He's not right.
I think it's it's more of a first world problem. When you start really peeling it back, and we've been struggling with this for many years, trying to solve it, because it's in our nature. We see a problem, we want to tackle it, we want to solve it. But every suicide is unique to that person. Every person has a tipping point, and I think you have to realize, once you start realizing that, and you have to start understanding what is it that is that for that individual. And then the other part of this too, where drugs come into this, that's an accelerant. Adding alcohol to a problem doesn't make the problem go away. It steers it in the wrong direction, further that tipping point. And what we're finding, we're working with, our chaplain is putting together a program to build durability is really what we're after. Somebody that's tough can take a beating and just get stronger from it. We're not sponges that bounce back. We get stronger and continue to push forward. So I think taking that approach, and you have to do some hard things to make you hard, and I think and that's when you kind of come to those realizations, of hey, I can get through this, and you have to do that. It's kind of an iterative process, and doing that with your teammates is another part of that too. Knowing that there's people here for you, and that you can count on them. And I think when you start getting away from that, and people start going to that isolation, that's when the team has to start cueing in, like, all right, what's going on with this person? And there's physiological indicators too. Yeah. The lack of sleep. And things like that, cortisol levels. I mean, there's biological things that are tied to this as well. But I think that interaction, making somebody feel like they belong, is a big part of what we're getting after, and that's goes to reception and integration. Bringing somebody off the street into the Army, bringing them onto the team. How do you receive them, and then how do you let them go? How do you push them off to the next phase in life? Is it don't let the door hit you on the way out, or making sure they got a good place to land? Are big factors.
We've been talking about that this week too. I'm coming to the opinion that I don't know if the military is the best organization to actually off-ramp their people. I mean, how many years did it take us to get good at our jobs? Like at least half a decade. Mm-hmm. And I think my exit from the Navy was a 2-week program. Full disclosure, I attended 0 days, but had all the signatures required. So I'll let other people figure that out. Yeah. Not advocating that as an approach. Point is, it's heavy on one side of the scale and lighter on the other. But maybe that is a perfect role for NGOs or organizations that can work with the military to take a much more hands-on approach than the military itself.
I don't want the military good at off-ramping people. I want the military good at murdering people. Like, we're supposed to be the most lethal fighting force on the planet, but if I'm focusing on, give them all the incentives to come in and want to be part of the greatest organization on the planet. But once they get here, they have to be the best at their job. Like, we're not just a deterrent, but every single nation should look at us and be like, and that is a bad idea. Right. It's like, if we're spending our time looking on how am I looking for this next person's job, yes, we have to take care of them. We have to position them to be successful in wherever they're going to go, however long they're going to be in the military, or whatever they're going to do afterwards. But first and foremost, lethality is our job. Lethality, both in preventative and actions on, should be that's what we got to be good at.
Well, I think you guys both nailed it, right? Hey, up until a certain point, it's what you just described, right? And once you hit a point, that's when you transition over, and you have to go through everything. So, you absolutely. Like I said, don't ask us how to get out. Yeah. So we're bringing in groups, part of our transition, and you guys should come. Whoever you guys want, come and be part of our transition. I know we talked a little about even if you just do a video or anything else, right?
I mean, it's math.
You guys should be talking about it. And by the way, number one, we want it. They're our men and women. Yeah. Shit, we want them to be successful, right? But the other thing too is when they go out, what's going to tell our story? People who come out and go, hey, you know something? I did 4 years in whatever service. I loved it. I was around the best people and everything else. Just where I was in my life, I decided to get out. I went and got a college degree, I did this, became a state trooper. I don't care what you did, right? And you know something? When I got out, they did a great job bringing me in, and they did a great job taking me out. Yeah. You can trust these people. Yeah. Go join the service.
That's back to the generational service.
Yeah. Well, I said, another part of this too is our type A personality. Sometimes we see a problem, try to solve. We see problems, we try to solve it. And what does the Army do? We build a program to take care of it. And so we got to be careful that that we're not making a hammock for soldiers. We got to have something there to catch them if they fall down. We've got a lot of great programs that do that. But some of our programs, some of this is life, and it's growing up to be an adult, and you got to figure it out. Sometimes that's how you learn your lessons, and we got to let soldiers kind of struggle through that a little bit sometimes.
Now you talk about a generational difference, right? Mm-hmm. And we all know this, right? And don't get me wrong, you go around the Army, they're like, oh, Donahue, he's a big tech guy, right? But, when we all met our significant others, right, we had to do that face to face, right? You couldn't do it through a phone. You couldn't do this. You don't lead through a phone. You don't tell if something's going on, somebody, hey, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Oh, well, who the hell's not going to say, yeah, I'm okay? But if you see somebody face to face and you go, hey, man, are you okay? And they go, oh, yeah, I'm okay. Oh, I got a question. What'd you do last night?
Blackout drunk, obviously.
Right. Oh,
Grab the bottle of wine that went out.
Totally fine.
You're telling me you're okay, man? No, you're not. Yeah. Right?
I mean, let's be honest. Nobody's going to say that to a 3-star, though. They're like, sir, I am great.
No. But I'm talking.
Thrilled to be here,
But that's just it, right? Donahue and Barker aren't going to solve that problem, to your point.
You're not going to get told the truth.
Right. So, but I'm talking about at that team, squad, troop, section, whatever you're in. I'm talking about that level, right? But that generation doesn't like to do it. We'll do that in a heartbeat, right? I mean, we have incredibly candid conversations with people, and they're like, whoa, like, what do you mean? What'd you do last night? Like, hey, man, I got a question. Where do you live? Why'd you pick that neighborhood? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? What do you mean? Oh, you're gonna get out of the Army? What's your plan? Okay, well, make your plan. Come see me, right? No. Come see me, and we'll call them up. No, get your butt up here, right? But they don't like to do that, and that's not because it's just the way it is, right? It's that generation. So how do you, this goes into holistic health, right? How do you build them to do, no, you gotta do eyeball to eyeball leadership here. You gotta do eyeball to eyeball caring about each other, right? You gotta have the guts to tell someone, hey man, you drink too much. Hey man, the rumor is you're taking whatever, right? Like, no, guys, you know why people give people fentanyl? Okay, because you become an ATM machine to some junkie who all he wants to do is make money off you, right? You see what happens when people, and then they cut everything with fentanyl because it gets you addicted, right? And they don't give a shit if you die, right? So all these things are all these little microcosms we're in. And, CBD, it's legal off post, right? So you're competing with all of that. That when I was a platoon leader, I didn't have to deal with that. Right, so we're asking more of these folks too, right? And so how do we just, you got to be upfront with them, and we have to tell them, hey, and by the way, no, this is easy. We didn't say it was easy, right? Leadership's not easy, so sort it out here. Let's have a real conversation on what we really have to do, and because they lead through phones and everything they've done is through Zoom, blah 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 blah, right? It's just different.
We're the last generation that grew up without phones in our hands from the beginning.
Which is why we're the best, because we didn't have it, then we had it.
But we know how to use it enough.
Well, I don't know. I'm pretty good at it. I like them things.
It's fair.
Yeah.
And by the way, you need it. It's the world we're in. I mean, that's half the problems that we're solving. All these issues we got to solve out there through that stuff, right? Yeah. And it's super effective.
How much is the big Army making changes to make it hard for people to fail? Like you're talking about I like your definition of resilience, or not using it. To me, so the textbook definition of resilience, right, is pushing an object from its natural state and it returns to that state, which I think is incomplete. It should be and stronger. Right. Bam. Which leads to, resilience should not be like, hey, I got pushed and I came back and I'm just as good. Like 0.00, whatever it is, stronger, which is what our training was, right? Like, BUDS is 180 days long, and I tell people this, any human being on earth can make it through one day. It's can you stack 180 days on top of each other that it makes it actually difficult. It's the grind. How do you get ready for that? You push yourself and bend yourself before the world or selection program does. Like, it's not rocket surgery by any stretch. But I also remember living on base when I was getting ready to go to BUDS, and I'd go to the chow hall because it was kind of what I could afford. And I think it had the caloric properties of this table, perhaps. It's like cheap food, because it was devoid of any nutrition whatsoever. It was basically, if I looking back on it, a buffet of carbohydrates. There was a cost value analysis for me. There was plenty of opportunities to drink on base. The community that I came from, I don't think anybody would disagree, had a steeped tradition in drinking. We were very good at fighting war, perhaps slightly better at getting drunk. I think that flipped a little bit after 9/11, but it can be argued. Is the Army making changes to make it harder for these people to fail? Re-looking at the defect, what are we serving people? Are there facilities, not only training, because, I mean, you know, I remember being 20, like, oh, what's rehab and recovery? No, I don't do that, I train. I'm in my mid-40s now. I'm a little bit more interested in rehab and recovery. I wish I had been then as well. I would go to the gym and ignore everything else they had. And actually, I think back on it, they didn't have anything else. It was a weight pile. Like, just when I was leaving the East Coast Command, I missed this, like, beautiful recreation with, like, saltwater flotation pods, whirlpools, altitude chambers, all of these things. But that's at a place that has a large checkbook. Yeah. Is the Army making changes along those lines to
absolutely.
help?
So part of the H2F program is for holistic health and fitness. It's physical, mental, spiritual, sleep, and medical. I'm sorry.
Spirituality,
spiritual,
physical,
mental, and sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so part of and diet. I'm sorry.
Yep.
What I was trying to get back to. So with diet, you know, we're doing a lot to revamp how we do feeding. You know, a lot of it's structure. You know, we changed in the Army structure, and our 92 Gulfs, our cooks, are going to be focused on field feeding. And so, what are we going to do to feed our soldiers right now? You know, some of the challenges we have is, you know, our dining facilities are per brigade, and so it might be over a mile or 2 miles for some of our soldiers to get that. So it's how do we increase access? So we have multiple problems here. So, you know, some things we're doing is adding food kiosks within the footprint so they can go and grab something from there. Also doing a grab and go style. So, you know, a soldier can come into the dining facility for breakfast, pick up their lunch and dinner, take that back and be able to reheat it. And the quality of the food is the other part that's much better. You know, we realize you have to, you know, body composition is 90%, you know, what you do in the kitchen, about 10% what you do in the gym. And so, you know, we're realizing that and we're given those options. You know, we're also looking at doing a campus style feeding. So think of, you know, any college campus that has different vendors that are available. So a soldier can go in there and get their food and make some healthier choices as well, you know. But we have to balance that too. With again, we're dealing with 18 to 21-year-olds. You know, they're going to eat tacos, they're going to eat cheeseburgers. Those types of things are going to be out there, and that's just kind of a fact. But giving them those healthy choices, so it's not just burgers that they have to choose from, or you know that they can get you know a salad or something a lot more structured, and also providing them the education for what the diet plans is you know, this is what you should be eating. You know, these are the macro breakdown, and so it's an incredible amount of information that they're getting, and it's not just one class. It's part of the culture of the formations. And then you look at another part of this when you look at the physical. You know, we're putting resources towards this, so it's more fitness facilities. You know, we have these facilities for the brigades that they have actual gym equipment. You know, it's not just go out and work out in a piece of grass in front of the headquarters building. You know, they have weights, they have strength coaches, they have trainers, and then we have reconditioning folks there that can help soldiers that are injured get them back in the fight sooner. We totally revamped our postpartum pregnancy program as well now, so that they can work out. You know, realizing that's a part of life too. And so, how do we get them back? You know, being able to continue to work out with their formation, and just really scale things for them so that they can continue to be with their team, because that's one of the biggest reasons why we do training is to you know, do things together as a team and build that cohesion.
Hey, and the Army directed us to just kind of this brings all these things together. They said, hey, 18th Airborne Corps, define lethality, and everything that CSM Barker just talked about is part of that of what you are when you're lethal. So when you on board, you're getting all these classes of how to eat and everything else. So now we're starting to see the proof in what people are actually, all the takeaway food, it's only healthy food. These kiosks are predominantly healthy food. Now, I mean, we all have, our day that you get to eat, whatever however you do it, right? Depending on your age or where you're at, okay? Or level of discipline. Okay, I'm 53. I can't do that anymore, right?
Yeah, I don't have 2 days.
So I started stretching at age 50. God, I wish I would have.
I know, we're a little behind the power curve.
So, but they have it all, and you're seeing them. They're embracing it, right? Does every person in every unit in 18th Airborne Corps embrace it? Of course not. Or the vast majority, and then the combat units, probably 90-some% are. So all that stuff has moved out.
It's that JSOC model cascading down.
It is.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Which is good. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the portion of the name of the command I'm at was development. It was literally in their charter to test and evaluate and develop things. It's rough to see it take almost 20 years to cascade down, but I mean, better late than never.
Yeah,
I suppose.
I mean, so now you're seeing all that stuff. I mean, and you're seeing the results too, right? Mm-hmm. So this lethality state, we gave the whole 3rd Infantry Division this, right? Ultimately everyone who's in their formation will go to a 1-day class to learn how to do the proper way of working out a whole day, okay? And pretty soon it's going to be everyone who comes into that division, you will get it now, be part of your onboarding. Commander and CSM have to go through together. The division CSM just took all of his CSMs through all that, right? Mm-hmm. So you're seeing all of these things, and then we changed. You now have tank crews doing stress shoots with a tank. So when you talk about the permutation of stuff out there, the field artillery. So the 3rd Infantry Division didn't do real well in this big field artillery competition. They just smoked everybody. And part of it's this lethality study. So I mean, you're starting to see these things come to fruition.
Yeah.
But what do you do for the cyber person, right?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, you got to. They're interested in it. They want to do it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the same as the tank crew, but it's not going to be, right? But you want them to do it. You want them to be part of that same culture, because no matter what, it's about here and up here, right? That's really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, and you nailed it, right? Doesn't matter what little process you've been through, it's about here and up.
Yeah. 32 years in the Army. What's been the highlight? You got any one particular thing that stands out?
No, I think there's something at every level.
Did you
Right.
ever think you were going to have 3 stars, or was
No.
that the goal when you joined?
No. In fact, every decision that I made at the time, everyone said, this is it.
Career suicide moves?
Right? But luck and chance, right? I mean, but yeah, I mean, you look at, similar organizations that we served in, everyone's like, you're going to retire at best as a lieutenant colonel now, right? But other people, right, the General Millers, Admiral McRavens of the world are the ones that were able to, get people like us out, right, to be able to do that. And I think we're changing things the right way.
Yeah. How about you, Sergeant Major?
I peaked as a platoon sergeant. The Army hasn't realized it yet, though.
That's how I describe getting a commission. It was my proof that the military advancement system was broken.
Yeah.
I slid right through the cracks.
Or, as I like to say, just don't quit, then they have no options.
I later found out they didn't have enough applicants for the program the year that I applied for, so that probably helped.
Just show up and don't quit. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. Do you have anything that sticks out, though, over your career?
I think every level there's been significant things. I think one of the things that when I was a junior NCO, I didn't have a whole lot of say in what we did, but I had to make damn sure that we were doing exactly what we were told and doing it to the standard. But I had my thoughts on how we could do it better. And now as I move through the ranks, I got a little bit more say in how we should do things and what we should be doing. But it's a little bit harder to be able to influence down to that lower level, because you have that chain that you have to work through. And so it's how do you increase your influence, and how do you get those touch points to be able to make those changes and get the team moving in the right direction. But I think every level it's been something special. I think being a platoon sergeant was the sweet spot. because some of the autonomy that you have, you know everybody within your formation, you know them really well, and then as you move up from there, it gets a little bit more distant. But I think the amount of good you can do for the organization grows with that level of responsibility as well.
What about the other side of the coin? What's the low point?
Meaning you.
It's not an uncommon response. I've brightened your life in many ways, Tim.
I don't know.
I've been so fortunate, and so many great things have happened, and I have so many great memories. That's why I can't answer that question, because I think it changes as you go along, right? But low point. I just remember being for the Army, right? Being a major is a really hard job, right? And I was doing 2 jobs at one time. I was deploying with the one job, and then I had to come back and do a bunch of stuff with our selection stuff and do both jobs at the same time. And me and my wife were trying to have kids, and if you're not home, kind of goes back to being, the faithful and everything else. That's extremely important, right? But if you're not together and you're doing all the right things in your marriage, you're probably not going to have kids. And you just put all that pressure in together. That 12-month period was the hardest 12-month period of my military career, hands down, right? I mean, so much was being asked. It was an important time, of what everything was going on in both Iraq and Afghanistan. We had to recruit, we had to build another formation, me and my wife. And so I just remember all the stuff that was going on that time period. That was very, very hard. Now, on the flip side of that, because my wife's such an incredible person, her and I, we actually grew out of that and got even closer, right? But man, those were some tough days, really tough days. And then the other one too is anytime you lose somebody, right? I mean, everyone has their own way of doing that, and everything. And but no matter what, there's always, there's certain dates, right?
Yeah.
That you always remember, and you try to make sure that this goes back to, it's not being resilient, right? So, hey, what are you doing to get better? What are you doing to earn it, right? And I think that kind of drives you as well. So,
what about you, Sergeant Major?
I think it's definitely loss, but I think probably more so unnecessary loss, like suicides and fatal accidents. Those are the kind of that I think I would say are probably the low points, because you can reason with and justify the other ones, but when it comes to those types of losses, it's a little bit harder to deal with.
What are your highs and lows, Tim? He was just completely spacing out when you guys were talking.
No, it was, honestly, the maps behind was incredibly distracting, because I'm like recognizing what fighting took place in some of these and how important they were for Normandy, the success on D-Day. So it's if we didn't get that port right there,
which is where we're staying, and every
yeah,
time we're driving by the port, we're talking about
4
it.
miles away from that.
By the way, that was the only road to it.
Yeah.
So you had to get it to get everybody there. Right.
And those dominoes, like, you don't get this road, you don't get that port, you don't get reinforcements.
Totally
everybody here is
trapped.
trapped,
Avoid
and
the
everybody
I was
here
going to
is
let
going
it
to
go
die.
even farther.
Hey, we answered all the questions,
Yeah.
right, man? Now you got to answer them.
Do you remember
You're
that
totally
time?
trying to avoid
Do you remember
this.
that time a few minutes ago where I asked you a question that you just tried to deflect?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just placating to discussing
Highest
maps
point of your
here.
military career?
A sunrise in the Urzgan Valley of Afghanistan, after fighting that I didn't think any of us were going to live through. And just seeing a sunrise, and there's a pomegranate tree there. There are pomegranate trees where I grew up in California. And actually wrote a poem about, there are many pomegranate trees, but this one's mine. I literally uprooted it, and I brought it back to Bagram with me. And I paid this little savage, this local, to water it and take care. And that was just symbolic of a baptism through fire. and not dying. And then low, I think, when I think to a 24-year-old egotistical, thought he was invincible, new to a team. Like there's just a lot of shame and embarrassment about, the first deployments and how I interacted with my bosses. And, I literally got in a fight with my team sergeant as we lost 160th, lost one of the helicopters to gunfire. And we had a helicopter assault force mission that night. And so they had to change the load plan, and I was one of the most junior guys on the team, so he removed me from the load plan. I was like, "You're so stupid," to my team sergeant, to an E8, and to John McPhee. And like, "I'm the fastest, I'm the strongest, I shoot better than everybody, like, you should put me on this plane. Kick Carlos off, Carlos is old," and he's... Like what I should have been doing, right, was like loading radios, doing headspace and timing on machine gun, making sure like our speed bags were loaded up, like all the things that a good soldier should have been doing. And just like thinking back to those days, it's just really embarrassing. All the things, all the friends that maybe wouldn't have got hurt, all the more bad guys we could have got. It's like, I don't know, those are two.
How many years have you been in, Sergeant Major?
28.
28, 32, so 60 years of combined service. What are you guys going to do with that when you get out? What do you want to do with your life post-military? Spoiler alert, it's coming for both of you.
Oh yeah, you kidding me? I reminded. I'm year to year, man. I'm year to year. He's got a little bit more run. I'm year to year. I got 5 kids, right?
Yep.
15-year-old twins, 11-year-old twins, and a 9-year-old. So I got to make sure that I get them through college and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have to work with that.
Yep.
Just like we talked about, I want to give back to us, somehow do that, right? But you don't want to be, just from the world we come from, like you don't want to be the rah-rah. I mean, that's not you want to create that forum where we come back together and we do celebrate what we did. And that sounds kind of weird, but whatever, like be like completely powerful, right? Like everyone gets together and, sorry, I was distracted.
What? No, they have 10 more minutes. Do they have 5 more minutes? Okay.
We got plenty of time. I was distracted. I saw that ended. I was like, well, you were flashing. That's what I saw. I was like,
well, she's like flashing. That's like, this is not my podcast. That's like, oh,
listen, I have 3 more hours on this card. He's the 3-star. We're pretty sure he's setting the rules here.
You got re-listening, sir. You got lots of stuff to do.
Well, I think this is super important.
I'll get you guys out of here in 5 minutes.
But hey, if you would ask the question again.
What do you want to do with the rest of your life post-military? You guys have 60 years of combined service. You're giving back to a nation. Say nobody even understands or recognizes the work that you have cumulatively done. How do you want to live your life moving forward from your military service? What do you want to do with that?
I'm a hillbilly from Western Pennsylvania. My dad raised me. My mom was a drug addict. I have 2 incredible sisters. Man, what the military has afforded me has been unbelievable. So I want to give back in really 3 groups. The first is my family, right? I got a bunch of kids that I got to, get through college and stuff like that. I got to get back to my wife, who's incredible, who's been there the entire time. I want to give back to us, right? I don't know how to do that, but I want to do that. And then obviously I'm pretty passionate about the Afghans that fought with us, right? And so those are the 3 primary groups, and then give back to society somehow, helping kids. So that's, I talk to people about that all the time.
Sergeant Major?
Yeah, it changes from time to time. I treat every job as if it's my last, really since probably after about 20 years. And at one point I think I was going to get out after my 2nd brigade, and I thought I was going to go join the Border Patrol. That was probably, and then a few months later I get hired to go be the division sergeant major for the 101st Airborne Division. And so it's always kind of trying to recalibrate what you're going to do. But I have a son that's a diesel mechanic. It'd be great to support him and help him start his own business. I have a 17-year-old daughter that's here with me that made the trip, and with aspirations to be an orthodontist. So I'm going to have to make some money to pay for that, But really to be able to set my children up to pursue what they want to do. They made a lot of sacrifices for me to be able to pursue what I wanted to do, and so that my main focus is really making sure that they're set up for what they want. And after that, I think it's it'll change. I think that's what I notice with a lot of guys that do retire is they get out with a plan, and then they might start down that path, but then about 6 months, 2 years later, they go down a different path. And I think the one thing that's got me to this point so far is there's been a path laid out before me, and I just show up and do my best, and things tend to work out. So it's not something I think about too much, because I know whatever it is going to present itself.
Last question. I'll get him out of here because I think I already know your answer. We're going to end it on a positive note, assuming that I'm correct in your answer. So many people talk about the greatest generation 80 years ago. I can't even fathom climbing over the ladders and into the boats and knowing what you're going into. And a lot of people will say there's just so many changes in our current generation. Given your station in the Army, you understand the manning, you understand what they're tooled for, what they're equipped for. If we were ever pressed again, like the young men and women were 80 years ago, do you think that the U.S. is ready to answer the call?
Absolutely. This people all the time say, what's the number one thing you don't do real well? Super fortunate to be the 18th Airborne Corps commander. 42% of the operational Army force is in 18th Airborne Corps, right? The number one thing I don't do is get all the talent out of all the people in the 18th Airborne Corps. We are awash of talent. It is unbelievable how much we got. And if we truly turned the spigots on and industrial base and everything came back to where it needs to be, we would kick anybody's ass anywhere in the world.
That's how you end a podcast.
That's it.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time.